At my grandfather's funeral, my cousins received his yacht, his penthouse, and his $27 million company. I was handed a small, crumpled envelope. Laughter erupted as I opened it. Inside was just a single plane ticket to Rome. Confused, I went when I arrived. A driver held up a sign with my name. He said sex words that made my jaw drop. Final part. His English was heavily accented, but clear. Who sent you? Your grandfather arranged everything months ago. My name is Lorenzo. Please, we have a long drive. He took my bag before I could protest, and led me outside to a black Mercedes sedan that probably cost most more than I made in 2 years. The October air was warm. Nothing like Detroit's autumn chill. Lorenzo opened the rear door for me, and I slid onto leather seats that felt like clouds. Where are we going? I asked as he pulled away from the curb. Monterey Estate, 1 hour north in the Sabine Hills. I don't understand. My grandfather never mentioned any estate in Italy. Lorenzo met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Mr. Roland, he owned the estate for 45 years. He visit every September first week, always alone, 45 years. That would mean since 1980, when I was minus 12 years old. The math didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. We left Rome's sprawl behind, climbing into hills covered with olive groves and vineyards. The landscape was almost painfully beautiful. Like something from a movie about finding yourself in Italy. Lorenzo drove with Italian confidence, taking curves at speeds that made me grip the door handle. How did you know my grandfather? I asked. My father was his driver first. When Papa died, I take over. 20 years now. I drive Mr. Roland when he come 20 years of September visits, that none of us knew about. What else had grandfather hidden? The road became narrower, winding through a small village where old men sat outside a cafe watching us pass. Then Lorenzo turned onto a private road lined with cypress trees. At the end, electronic gates opened automatically, revealing a villa that took my breath away. 3 stories of honeycombed stone, terraces overlooking endless vineyards. Gardens that looked like they belonged in a Renaissance painting. Lorenzo parked in front of massive wooden doors that had to be centuries old. Before I could process what I was seeing, the doors opened, and an elderly woman emerged. She was elegant in a way that had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with grace. Her silver hair pulled back in a simple bun, her eyes the same steel gray as grandfather's. She walked toward me slowly, tears streaming down her face, and I knew before Lorenzo said the words that changed everything. Nathan, Lorenzo said softly. Meet your grandmother, Sophia Whitmore. The world tilted. I actually reached for the car to steady myself. That's impossible. My grandmother died before I was born. Sophia reached me then, her hands taking mine, her grip surprisingly strong. Your American grandmother did die, Carol, but I am very much alive. Her accent was musical, her English perfect but formal. She studied my face like she was memorizing it. You have his eyes, she whispered. But your father's gentle spirit. Come inside, Nathan. There's so much to tell you. The villa's interior was understated elegance. Nothing like the gaudy mansion Vernon and Beatrice owned. Sophia led me to a sitting room where the walls were covered with photographs. I saw my grandfather, young and laughing, standing in front of a small church, a wedding photo, grandfather and Sophia, both barely in their 20s, radiantly happy. We married in 1947, Sophia said, watching me process everything. Roland had come to Italy with the Navy, stayed after the war to help with reconstruction. We met at a dance in Rome. He was so handsome, so full of dreams. We started with nothing, just a few acres of vines his friends sold us for almost nothing. She poured 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter. This is from our vineyard, Arita, we call it inheritance. The wine was extraordinary, complex, and rich. I don't understand. Grandfather had a whole life here, more than a life, Caro. He had a family, me, our son, Augusto, the grandchildren he never met because he chose America instead. He left you. The Korean War started. Roland felt duty calling. He was supposed to be gone 6 months. Her voice carried no bitterness, just sadness. But he met your American grandmother while on leave. She was pregnant with Vernon. An honorable man would have divorced me, but Roland couldn't bear to give up either life, so he kept both separate, secret. My hands were shaking. He lived a complete lie. No, Nathan, he lived 2 truths. He loved us both in different ways. The vineyard grew, became successful. He sent money, visited every year, but he couldn't choose until now. She walked to an antique desk, and pulled out a thick folder. Whitmore Vineyards International. $47 million in assets. It's all yours, Nathan. He was very specific. Not Vernon, not Preston, you. The documents Sophia handed me were overwhelming. Deeds, contracts, bank statements. All proving that my grandfather had built an entirely separate empire on this side of the Atlantic. But what hit me hardest was the video she played on an old laptop recorded. Just 1 month before grandfather died. His face filled the screen, and for the first time ever, he looked peaceful. Nathan, if you're watching this, then you trusted me enough to take the flight. Good, you always were the only one who understood that some things matter more than money. Your cousins got what they always wanted from me, the appearance of success. But appearances can be deceiving. Whitmore Shipping has been hemorrhaging money for 3 years. I've hidden it in the books, but Preston's about to inherit a disaster. The penthouse has 3 mortgages. The yacht is leased, the Hampton estate, the bank owns 70% of it. I gave them exactly what they showed me. They valued hollow prizes that look golden from the outside. He leaned closer to the camera. But you, Nathan. You visited me every Sunday just to play chess. Never asked for anything. Never angled for position. You chose teaching over money because you wanted purpose. So I'm giving you what you never asked for, truth, family, and yes, wealth that's actually real. The vineyard produces 2 million bottles a year. The villa has been in Sophia's family for 300 years. Your uncle Osto has been running operations, waiting to meet you. Your cousins Marco and Elena are good people raised right. Nothing like Preston and Mallory. This is your real inheritance, a family that values work, land that produces something real, and a legacy built on truth, not lies. He paused, that familiar sharp look returning to his eyes. Oh, and Nathan, your next move is yours to make, but here's my advice. Preston's going to call within a month, begging for help. Be kinder to him than he was to you. That's what makes you better. Checkmate, my boy. The screen went dark. Sophia squeezed my shoulder gently. He talked about you constantly, she said, every visit. Stories about his grandson. The teacher who chose meaning over money. I spent 3 weeks in Italy, learning everything. Uncle Osto looked so much like my father, it made my chest tight. He ran the vineyard operations with quiet efficiency. Never bitter about being the hidden son. Marco and Elena, my Italian cousins, welcomed me like a brother returning from war. They taught me about wine, about the land, about the grandfather they knew, versus the one I knew. He was different here, Elena told me one evening as we walked through the vines, lighter. He'd work in the fields, hands in the dirt, laughing. Not the businessman you knew. The call from Preston came. Exactly 23 days later, I was back in Detroit teaching my classes when my phone rang at midnight. Nathan, it's Preston. We need to talk. His voice had lost all its arrogance. The company's bankrupt. The accountants found everything. Dad's lost the house. Mallory's penthouse got foreclosed yesterday. It's all gone. I'm sorry, Preston. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. We were horrible to you. He paused, and I heard him struggling. Grandfather left you something real, didn't he? Yes, good. You deserve it. You were the only one who actually loved him instead of his money. I made Preston an offer the next day. Manage the U.S. distribution for Ired Day wines. Salary, not ownership. He accepted immediately. Mallory took longer to swallow her pride. But eventually she came around too. She's actually good at marketing when she's selling something real instead of just herself. She's engaged to Lorenzo's son now. Living in Rome, learning the business from the ground up. Vernon and Beatrice moved to a small apartment in New Jersey. Vernon found work as a bookkeeper. Beatrice got a job at Nordstrom. They don't speak to me. But Preston says they're actually happier, forced to rely on each other instead of money. My mother moved into the guest house on the California property I bought with my first distribution payment. She retired from nursing and spends her days painting, something she'd always wanted to do but never had time for. And me, I still teach, but only part-time now. Summers I spend in Italy learning the wine business, getting to know the family I never knew existed. My students think it's hilarious that their history teacher owns a vineyard. I use it to teach them about international trade, agriculture, and family businesses. Last week, I was in the villa playing chess with Uncle Osto when he said something that stopped me cold. You know, your grandfather always said the winner isn't who takes the most pieces, but who knows which pieces really matter. I looked at the board, then at the vineyards through the window, then at the photo of grandfather on the wall, young and hopeful in 1947. He won, I said. It just took 60 years for the game to end. Osto smiled. No, Nathan, you won. You just didn't know you were playing. That crumpled envelope they all laughed at, it wasn't just a plane ticket. It was an invitation to discover who I really was, where I really came from, and what really mattered. My grandfather gave my cousins what they thought they wanted, and gave me what I didn't know I needed. The last bottle of wine grandfather personally produced sits in my apartment in Detroit, unopened. The label says Eredita 2024, and underneath in his handwriting for Nathan, who understood that the best inheritance isn't what you're given, but what you're trusted to continue. Every Sunday I still play chess. Sometimes with Osto in Italy, sometimes with my students in Detroit, sometimes alone, thinking about the old man who orchestrated the longest game I've ever seen. He taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in truth, family, and the courage to trust when nothing makes sense. Turns out the board everyone else was watching. That was just the distraction. The real game was happening on a completely different board, in a different country, in a different language. And grandfather made sure I was the only one who got an invitation to play.